I, 32F, have been married to my husband Jake, 35M, for 8 years. We have 2 children, Lily, 7F, and Max, 5M. Our life together has been mostly happy, but recent events have thrown our family into turmoil, and I'm struggling to find a way forward. To understand the situation, I need to give some background about my family. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the oldest of 3 children. My parents, Susan, 58F, and David, 60M, were high school sweethearts who married young and had me when they were just 20. They worked hard to provide for us. My dad is a factory worker and my mom is a part-time nurse. We weren't rich, but we never went without. I was always the responsible one, getting good grades and helping out at home. My sister Amy, 29F, was the middle child, quieter and more artistic. Then there was Ethan, 25M, the baby of the family and the source of our current problems. Ethan was a handful from the start. He was diagnosed with ADHD at a young age and struggled in school. My parents did their best, but they were often overwhelmed. As the oldest, I often found myself taking care of Ethan, helping him with homework and trying to keep him out of trouble. Despite the challenges, our family was close-knit. We had Sunday dinners together every week, went on camping trips in the summer, and always celebrated holidays as a big group. These are the memories I cherish, and part of why the current situation is so heartbreaking. I met Jake in college. He was a year ahead of me, studying business while I was pursuing a degree in education. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love of 90s sitcoms and our dreams of starting a family. Jake came from a more stable background, his parents were still happily married, and he had a comfortable upbringing in the suburbs of Chicago. When Jake met my family, he was a bit overwhelmed by the chaos but quickly became part of the fold. He was especially good with Ethan, who was 15 at the time and going through a rebellious phase. Jake would play basketball with him and talk to him about girls, providing a positive male role model that Ethan desperately needed. After college, Jake and I moved to Cincinnati for work. We got married in a small ceremony in my parents' backyard, with Ethan serving as one of Jake's groomsmen. For a while, everything seemed perfect. Jake's career in marketing took off, and I found a job teaching 3rd grade at a local elementary school. We bought our first house, a cozy 3-bedroom in a good school district, and started trying for a baby. Meanwhile, things were getting worse with Ethan back home. He dropped out of high school in his senior year, despite my parents' best efforts to keep him on track. He started hanging out with a rough crowd and experimenting with drugs. I felt guilty for not being there, but Jake reminded me that we had our own life to build. Lily was born a year after we got married, and Max followed 2 years later. Becoming a mom was the most amazing experience of my life, but it also meant I had less time and energy to devote to my family back home. I tried to stay in touch, calling my parents weekly and visiting when we could, but it wasn't the same. Ethan's struggles continued. He'd bounce from job to job, sometimes living with my parents, sometimes crashing on friends' couches. There were periods where he'd seem to get his act together, followed by spectacular relapses. Each time, it took a toll on my parents and on our family as a whole. Last year, things seemed to be looking up for Ethan. He got a job as a line cook at a popular restaurant in town and started dating a sweet girl named Sarah, 23F. He was going to NA meetings and had been clean for 6 months. I was so proud of him and thought maybe he had finally turned a corner. Then, about 3 months ago, I got a late-night call from Ethan. He was crying, barely coherent. The restaurant where he worked had suddenly closed down, leaving him jobless. Sarah had broken up with him, saying she couldn't handle the stress of his past addiction. He was behind on rent and afraid he'd end up on the street. Without thinking it through, I offered to let him stay with us for a while. Jake was hesitant, reminding me of Ethan's past behavior and our responsibilities to our kids. But I convinced him that it would just be for a couple of months, just until Ethan got back on his feet. I couldn't bear the thought of my little brother being homeless. At first, things were okay. Ethan seemed grateful and tried to help out around the house. He'd play with Lily and Max, and even offered to cook dinner a few times, his skills from the restaurant coming in handy. But slowly, things started to unravel. Ethan would stay up late playing video games, the noise keeping the kids awake. He'd eat all our food without contributing to groceries. Empty beer cans started appearing in the recycling bin, even though he'd promised not to drink in our house. He'd invite friends over without asking, and I once came home to find him and 2 guys I didn't know smoking in our backyard while Lily and Max played unsupervised. Jake and I started arguing more and more. He wanted Ethan out, saying he was taking advantage of us and potentially putting our kids at risk. I kept making excuses, saying Ethan just needed more time, that we couldn't abandon him when he was struggling. Deep down, I knew Jake was right, but I felt torn between my role as a wife and mother and my desire to help my brother. The final straw came last week. Jake came home early from work, not feeling well. He found Ethan passed out on the couch, surrounded by empty beer cans and a half-eaten pizza. Lily and Max were playing in the backyard, unsupervised. When Jake woke Ethan up, he was belligerent and slurred his words. Jake called me at work, angrier than I've ever heard him. He demanded that Ethan leave immediately, saying he wouldn't have our children around someone so irresponsible. I left work early and came home to find Jake packing Ethan's things. I knew it was time. I sat Ethan down and told him he needed to leave. He became furious, accusing me of abandoning him like our parents had. He said some truly hurtful things, bringing up old family grievances and accusing me of thinking I was better than him because I had a perfect life. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard it woke up Max from his nap. Now, Ethan is staying with a friend and isn't speaking to me. My parents are upset, saying I should have known better than to let Ethan stay with us, that I was enabling his behavior. Amy is caught in the middle, trying to mediate between everyone. Jake is frustrated with me for letting the situation go on for so long. He says he feels like I prioritized Ethan over our family's well-being. Lily keeps asking when Uncle Ethan is coming back, and I don't know what to tell her. I feel like I've let everyone down, my husband, my kids, my parents, and Ethan. I was trying to help, but I've just made everything worse. How can I fix this mess? How do I repair my relationship with Jake and set better boundaries with Ethan? Was I wrong for trying to help my brother, even when it caused problems in my own family? I'm lost and could really use some advice. Update 1. It's been about a month since my last post, and I wanted to provide an update on the situation. First, I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. Your comments really helped me gain perspective on the situation and gave me the courage to take some difficult but necessary steps. After Ethan left, Jake and I had a long, honest conversation about everything that had happened. It was a tough talk, with both of us expressing frustrations and hurts that had been building up over the past few months. I apologize for putting our family in such a difficult position and for not setting better boundaries with Ethan from the start. Jake admitted that he could have communicated his concerns more clearly from the beginning instead of letting his resentment build up. We both agreed that we needed to prioritize our own family unit moving forward. Jake suggested we see a marriage counselor to work through some of the issues that came up during Ethan's stay. At first, I was hesitant. I've always believed that couples should be able to work things out on their own. But Jake pointed out that seeking help wasn't a sign of weakness, but a commitment to our relationship. We've had 2 sessions so far, and while it's been emotional, I think it's helping us communicate better. As for Ethan, I decided to reach out to him about a week after he left. Not to invite him back, but to check on him and see if we could talk things through. He agreed to meet me for coffee at a neutral location. During our conversation, I explained how his behavior had affected my family and that while I loved him, I couldn't continue to support him at the expense of my own household's well-being. To my surprise, Ethan was actually receptive. The time away seemed to have given him some perspective. He admitted that he had taken advantage of our hospitality and had fallen back into some bad habits. He told me that losing his place at our house had been a wake-up call. He'd been attending now meetings again and was actively looking for work. I was cautiously optimistic but made it clear that he would need to demonstrate real change before he could be a regular part of our lives again. We agreed to have weekly phone calls to stay in touch, but that he wouldn't be coming to our house for the time being. I also encouraged him to reach out to our parents and try to mend that relationship as well. Things at home started to improve. Jake and I focused on rebuilding trust and spending quality time together. We started having regular date nights, even if it was just watching a movie together after the kids went to bed. We also made an effort to do more family activities. We took the kids on a weekend camping trip, which helped us reconnect as a family and reminded me of the camping trips we used to take when I was young. Lily and Max seemed to pick up on the improved atmosphere at home. Lily stopped asking about Uncle Ethan as much, instead getting excited about our family game nights. Max, who had been having some behavior issues at preschool during Ethan's stay, settled back into his usual happy self. However, about 2 weeks ago, we hit another bump in the road. My parents called to tell me that Ethan had shown up at their house, asking for money. When they refused, he became belligerent and threatened to sell some family heirlooms he had in his possession, including my grandmother's wedding ring, which my mom had given him for safekeeping during one of his previous attempts to get clean. My parents were distraught and asked me to intervene. I was torn. On one hand, I wanted to help my parents and prevent Ethan from doing something he'd regret. On the other hand, I knew getting involved could jeopardize the progress I'd made with Jake and the boundaries I'd set with Ethan. I was also hurt that Ethan would consider selling our grandmother's ring. It felt like a betrayal of our family's trust. After discussing it with Jake, we decided that I would call Ethan but not give in to any demands or offer financial help. When I spoke to him, it became clear that he was using again. He was angry and incoherent, accusing me of turning our parents against him and saying that the family owed him for all the times we'd let him down. I ended the call feeling helpless and guilty. Jake reminded me that Ethan's choices were his own and that we couldn't sacrifice our family's well-being trying to save him. Still, it's been hard knowing my brother is struggling while I maintain my distance. I called my parents back and suggested they change the locks on their house, just in case. I also reached out to Amy to see if she had heard from Ethan. She hadn't, but promised to let me know if he contacted her. The situation with Ethan remains unresolved, but I'm trying to stay strong and focus on my immediate family. Jake has been incredibly supportive, and I'm grateful for his patience through all of this. We're taking it one day at a time and hoping that Ethan will eventually choose to get the help he needs. In the meantime, I'm trying to focus on the positive changes in our household. Jake and I are communicating better, and I feel like we're presenting a united front to the kids. We're planning a small birthday party for Max next month, and I'm looking forward to creating happy memories with our family and friends. It's not easy, and there are still days when I feel overwhelmed with worry for Ethan. But I'm trying to remember that I can't control his actions, only my own. For now, that means prioritizing my marriage, my children, and my own mental health. I'm hopeful that in time, Ethan will find his way back to us, but I know it has to be on his terms, when he's truly ready to make a change. Update 2. It's been another few weeks, and the situation with Ethan has taken an unexpected turn. About 10 days ago, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. It turned out to be Sarah, Ethan's ex-girlfriend. Sarah explained that she had broken up with Ethan because of his relapse into drug use, not just because he lost his job as he had told me. She had recently bumped into him at a local diner and was worried about his state of mind. Apparently, Ethan had been talking about making things right with our family, which Sarah interpreted as potentially dangerous. She also mentioned that Ethan had been hanging out with some old friends who were known drug users. I was shocked by this information. Sarah and I had never been close. I'd only met her a handful of times when she and Ethan were dating. The fact that she felt compelled to reach out to me spoke volumes about how concerned she was. I thanked her for calling and asked her to let me know if she heard from Ethan again. Alarmed by this information, I immediately called my parents to warn them. They hadn't seen or heard from Ethan since his last outburst at their house, but I urged them to be cautious. My dad talked about installing a security system, something they'd never felt the need for in their quiet neighborhood before. I also informed Jake about Sarah's call. He suggested we install a security system at our home as well, just in case. I felt a pang of sadness at the thought of having to protect ourselves from my own brother, but I knew Jake was right. We had the system installed the next day, which brought some peace of mind, especially for the kids' sake. 3 days after Sarah's call, my worst fears were realized. I got a frantic call from my mom in the middle of the night. Ethan had broken into their house, clearly high on something. He was ranting about how the family had abandoned him and demanding money. My dad had managed to lock himself and my mom in their bedroom and call the police. Jake and I rushed over to my parents' house, leaving the kids with our next-door neighbor. We arrived just as the police were taking Ethan into custody. It was heartbreaking to see my brother in handcuffs, looking so lost and angry. He was hardly recognizable, thin, disheveled, with dark circles under his eyes. As the police car drove away, I could see him shouting something, but I couldn't make out the words. My parents were shaken but unharmed. The police took their statement, and we spent the rest of the night cleaning up the mess Ethan had made. He had broken a window to get in and had ransacked the living room and my dad's study, presumably looking for money or valuables. The sight of my childhood home in such disarray was surreal and devastating. The next day, we learned that Ethan was facing charges for breaking and entering, as well as possession of illegal substances. The police had found a small amount of meth on him when they made the arrest. My parents decided not to press additional charges, hoping this would be the rock bottom Ethan needed to turn his life around. Jake and I had another serious discussion about how to handle the situation. We agreed that while we couldn't abandon Ethan completely, we also couldn't risk the safety of our family. We decided that I would visit Ethan in jail, but only with a counselor present, and that we would not offer any financial support for his legal fees or bail. When I visited Ethan, he was a mess of emotions, angry, remorseful, and scared. The counselor helped mediate our conversation, and for the first time, I felt like Ethan was truly listening when I explained how his actions had affected all of us. He agreed to enter a rehab program as part of his plea deal. This whole ordeal has been incredibly stressful, but it's also brought Jake and me closer together. He's been my rock through all of this, and I'm more grateful for him than ever. We're focusing on creating a stable, happy environment for our kids while also trying to support Ethan's recovery from a safe distance. I'm cautiously hopeful that this might be the turning point for Ethan, but I'm also realistic about the long road ahead. For now, we're taking things one day at a time and prioritizing the well-being of our immediate family. Update 3, continued. It's been about 2 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some developments in our family situation. Ethan has been in a court-mandated rehab program for the past 6 weeks. The program includes intensive therapy, both individual and group sessions, as well as life skills training. It's a 90-day inpatient program, so he still has some time left. I've been able to visit Ethan a few times, always with a counselor present. These visits have been challenging, to say the least. The first time I saw him, I hardly recognized my brother. He looked thin and tired, but his eyes were clearer than they'd been in a long time. It's been a roller coaster of emotions. Sometimes he seems committed to his recovery, other times he's angry and resentful. During our last visit, Ethan apologized for the trouble he caused our family. It wasn't a perfect apology, he still tried to justify some of his actions, but it felt like a significant step forward. He talked about how the program was forcing him to confront some deep-seated issues, including his feelings of inadequacy compared to Amy and me. It was hard to hear, but I think it's necessary for his healing process. Jake has been incredibly supportive throughout this process. He's encouraged me to attend Al-Anon meetings, which have been helpful in learning how to support Ethan without enabling him. The meetings have also connected me with other people who are dealing with loved ones struggling with addiction. It's been comforting to know we're not alone in this struggle. Jake even offered to come with me to a family therapy session with Ethan, which really meant a lot to me. We haven't done it yet. Ethan's counselor wants to wait until he's a bit further along in the program, but knowing Jake is willing to be part of the process has strengthened our relationship. My parents are still struggling to come to terms with everything that's happened. They're hesitant to have any contact with Ethan, which I understand given the break-in incident. Dad has been having trouble sleeping, and Mom's anxiety has been worse than usual. They've started seeing a therapist of their own to work through their feelings. I'm trying to respect their boundaries while also gently encouraging them to consider family therapy when Ethan completes his program. Amy has been a great support through all of this. She's been checking in on our parents regularly and has offered to come stay with them for a while when Ethan is released from rehab. She's also been a good sounding board for me when I need to vent or work through my feelings about the situation. As for our immediate family, we're doing our best to maintain a sense of normalcy for the kids. Lily and Max know that Uncle Ethan is sick and getting help, but we've shielded them from the more troubling details. We've focused on fun family activities and have even started planning a small vacation for the summer, just a week at a nearby lake, but something for all of us to look forward to. Jake and I have also been working on strengthening our relationship. We've continued with our regular date nights and have been more intentional about communicating our feelings and concerns. This whole experience has taught us the importance of presenting a united front and supporting each other through difficult times. While things are far from perfect, I feel like we're moving in a positive direction. Ethan's recovery is a long-term process, and I know there will likely be setbacks along the way. However, I'm committed to maintaining healthy boundaries and prioritizing the well-being of my husband and children. I'm grateful for the support and advice I've received throughout this journey. It's been a stark reminder of the importance of family, communication, and self-care. We're taking it one day at a time, but I'm hopeful for what the future holds. There's still a long road ahead, especially once Ethan completes the rehab program. We'll need to navigate how to support him while maintaining our boundaries. But for now, I'm trying to focus on the progress we've made and the small victories along the way. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this difficult time.